Oh, Robert Mckeon. I'm going to ask him how to pronounce it. I couldn't. I was spelling it 4 different times. So Rob Mckeon is running independently, as is Arthur Schlossbach. And here we are with Rob Mckeon. Am I pronouncing your name right?
You are.
All right,
yes.
Good. Because it's Mckeon.
It is Mckeon.
So, yeah, because I had EWEN and all those. Is that somebody else? Like,
hey, Maureen, I'm hearing three of your voices here.
Oh no, how did that happen? Oh, do you have your computer on Facebook or something?
Hold on.
Okay. I'm going to take it from this. Is that me? Pardon. But I'm not running for office. I wouldn't vote.
Is that better?
You're good. You're good now, they say. Okay.
We're good? Okay.
Yes,
All
you're
right.
good.
How are you today?
Well, I tried to cover the world as I always do, and I fell a little short. I didn't. I had to kind of summarize with you. So I'm going to throw some things at you, which are basically, I'm going to give you a lot of space to talk about your unusual background, because I think you're the only one who is an employee of the city who is running for office. I think we can safely say that. And it's a kind of a complicated situation. Real life. And what was I going to ask you? I might as well ask you right off. You've had a chance to read the ordinance for the rent leveling and stabilization ordinance, yeah, which some people might call rent control. There's been threats of landlords jumping off of buildings. I think that's why you can't use that term, but we can find out if they really mean it.
Yeah, I mean,
after an hour, I get silly. I'm sorry.
So that's all right. So generally, as a concept, I don't necessarily. Conceptually. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with rent control because I don't know that it. I think there's a lot of negatives that come from it, and I think that it. First of all, it causes a situation where you have properties that are left. That fall into disrepair and not well maintained. When you have landlords that can't charge market rents, they're not going to maintain.
Well, let me just stop you right there.
Sure.
Because it's a very complex document. And you did say you did read it, correct?
I looked at it, Maureen, but I have to be honest with you, because of, I have not spent a whole lot of time on it. I went through the drafts when you sent it to me, or you actually gave me the link on your site, and I took a look at it.
Oh, good. Yeah, so you know, it used to be an issue that you know, the landlords wouldn't have enough money left over paying their own expenses if they weren't allowed to raise the rents. Well, in this case, it would be more than 4% a year, which is double the CPI right now, the Consumer Price Index. In this case, though, with this ordinance, it allows landlords to go for hardship cases. So if they weren't able to keep up their houses, they could file a hardship case and show that in doing that, they do have to show all of their financial records. So if they're not willing to open their books up, that's their issue. But they can't go over 20% for an increase on a hardship. So that's what's built
Yeah.
into
But
it.
you asked me generally as a concept, and I'm trying to explain to you. So the other thing is that,
Sure.
you
Well,
know,
we'll take it.
what I ran into a lot when I was working in the city, as a director of property improvement and neighborhood preservation,
Give me that title again.
I was
So
the director.
as an employee of the city, you were.
I was the director of property improvement and neighborhood preservation, and under that title, I was also the director of the code enforcement department. So in that capacity,
The director, your voice went away for a moment there.
I was also,
So you were also director of code
correct. I
enforcement?
ran the code enforcement department, and but there were added responsibilities in this new title that they created. I was the first one in this new job.
Uh-oh, are
Having
you
trouble hearing me?
freezing? Yeah, I think we were starting to, I just got that you were head of code enforcement and then this new project that they gave you, right?
No, so what I was saying is, so that was my title, but within that title, some of the main responsibility was I was the director of the code enforcement department. So
Okay.
traditional code enforcement department for the city. And then they added responsibilities on for other programs and jobs that they wanted to implement at the time when this title was created. And I was hired in 2000. So
I'm sorry, 2000 what?
2014. I started on July 28th, 2014.
Okay.
So in that capacity, the code enforcement part of it, I
Right.
would
Okay. Okay. It's when you sit back in your chair. I lose
okay.
those words, whatever they are.
All right. I'll sit still. I move around a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. If you stay there, I think that's better.
In that capacity, as a director of code enforcement, I would have probably a significant amount of contact with tenants who would come in regarding problems that they were having in their units, the rental units. And, I would say 70% of the time it led to issues about their rent and the amount of rent that was being charged, and landlords that were trying to increase their rents unreasonably. And in my law practice, I mean, I've been practicing law now since 1988. And for probably, I don't know, 20 years of that practice, I did a lot of landlord tenant law. And, I realized, there are laws in the state that protect tenants. It's a tenant friendly state when it comes to landlord tenant laws. And there's an anti-eviction statute. There are laws that prevent landlords from raising rent unreasonably. And so there are other protections that tenants have. And 9 times out of 10, the tenants that came in that were, having issues with their landlords were not aware of their rights. And they didn't know where to go to get help with their rights. And I tried to get them in the right direction. I couldn't, because I had to be careful that I didn't cross that line. I couldn't, practice law and give them legal advice. But I tried to move them in the right direction and help them find, the legal, the legal help that they needed to address and to protect them in that capacity. So, and and there were other ones that followed up with me and told me, thank you, because I didn't know that, and I got somebody, or we went to legal aid and they helped us, and we got everything taken care of. In the law in the state of New Jersey, when it comes to landlord tenants or landlord and tenant law, is that landlords, for the most part, can't raise their rent more than, it's usually 5 to 7%. There's no fixed rate that the courts have fixed. Courts in case law have talked about a rough percentage, and it's based on, every case is taken on a case-by-case basis based on the circumstances in connection with that case and that lease, that landlord and that tenant. So each case that comes up for, based on a tenant raising an issue that the landlord has raised their rent unreasonably, the judge looks at it on its own merits and addresses it. So there are those protections that I think already in place. And I think between that and there are other ways to go to address affordable housing issues in the city that I think
in Asbury Park, Ryan, unless Well, are you talking about doing this for Asbury Park, or you were helping the landlords and the tenants with their rights?
I
5
wasn't
to
helping them. I was
7%?
telling them that, look, you have
Yeah,
rights and you need to go check this out.
um,
And
because
it's not Asbury Park, it's state. This is the state law.
well, there's no
There's an anti-eviction law, and
right, but
there is state case law that protects tenants, that prevents landlords from being able to raise their rent unreasonably.
well, we don't have that in Asbury Park.
That's a
We,
state
we
law,
have
Maureen.
we have no rent control in Asbury Park.
It's not rent control.
And
It's
and now
state.
I actually got this information from the deputy director of the Newark office of the legal aid services, and he actually goes to court with tenants. He doesn't represent landlords, but he does represent tenants, and that's why he had seen the same ordinance. He read it. As a matter of fact, I think it was the same day that he was on my show, and
Okay,
he
so
talked about the need for it because otherwise they could go above this 4% in charging increases.
well, yeah. So the courts have allowed rental increases up to, I think in all the time I practiced in landlord-tenant law, when we went into court over unreasonable rental increases, I think the highest that a landlord ever was able to do was 7%, and it was based on the circumstances in that
Was how much?
case.
I'm sorry, you lost
7%. 7%.
It was 7%.
Yeah.
Was the highest they could go.
In that case. So
Okay,
that
so
was the highest I ever
it
saw.
could have been a hardship case, right?
Yeah, this was years ago. I don't remember
Yeah,
what the
because
circumstances.
this ordinance, and I don't want to get into arguing the ordinance because it's not a legal document yet. It's just a draft
Sure.
for the council's consideration. But the highest they could go, even on a hardship, is 20%, according to this draft. And I think that's
On an annual basis?
Yeah.
Annually?
This is for a hardship case where they had to, get something fixed that wasn't, I guess, being reimbursed by insurance or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at your ordinance, the ordinance that you drafted a little closer, because that's, I got to be honest with you.
I didn't personally do it. The lawyers at
But I got to be honest with you, I think that's violative of state law to protect tenants. I mean, there's law that says landlords can't do that. Now you have different classes of tenants.
That's what this draft calls for, though. It says anything over 20% would be unconscionable, even in a and you couldn't do that unless it was a hardship.
Okay, but I think 10% or 20% that you're talking about is way above what I'm talking about. I'm talking they can't raise more than 5 to 7% annually. Okay.
Yeah, but
for a tenant that has it,
rent, though, right? It's just rent,
that's rent.
Not for a special case of hardship. That's not.
Yeah, and I don't. You know what? I don't want to. If you don't mind, I don't want to spend all of my time talking about that because you and I can talk about that off. There's lots of other things I want to talk about.
I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
All right. So, but I wanted to get you on that, and
sure.
So your mind is open to it.
I am. Yeah, I'm open to hearing the arguments on both sides.
You're probably going to come back after you read that ordinance. So,
sure.
And how do you feel on the police reform? There's a resolution.
The equity committee.
Passed, the equity committee, yeah.
The equity committee. I think it's a great idea. It was something that I had, it was kind of a coincidental because I had put a platform out, and it was probably a day after I put my platform out, and all of a sudden there was this issue about policing reform or this equity committee being discussed. And all of a sudden I read an article in the newspaper, the local newspaper, and I had been talking about it for a while.
You have been talking about it in a while?
Well, to people. I mean, I just decided to run. You're one of the first people I talked to when I decided to run. You know when that was, and that was one of the issues that I raised in discussing around town when I would run into people.
Was this spawned by the recent rash of black men being killed or
the recent,
dying in police custody.
right, the
Like
recent events
George
around the
Floyd. Okay.
country,
Yeah.
the events that, here in the city, that, the little girl that was shot over, by a stray bullet. I mean, that has nothing to do with policing reform, but the issue about, body cams on street crime unit
Mm-hmm.
officers. Okay, that's an issue. I think that's a problem all over the country, and I think Trenton implemented a program. I think it was Trenton, and I think it's been successful, where they decided they were going to put body cams on the street crime. The idea is the street crime guys are the guys that are supposed to be undercover. They're supposed to be the guys, walking around and nobody knows they're police. So they decided to implement this program where they put the body cams on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what the final result is. I think that was a recent program over the last year and a half.
Oh. So was that in Asbury Park, or is that just, you're
In
talking
Trenton.
in generalities? Trenton.
I'm talking about in Trenton. That was a program that I had read about that they implemented.
I just
But
want to give
I
you an
guess
idea of the time, because here's 3.5 minutes left.
What?
Yeah,
I get more than that.
can't
Come
be
on.
right. That can't be right.
I got all my stuff to talk about.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. Those are my questions. You go with yours. What you want to say.
Okay. How about if I just run through the main points of my platform? And I got to be honest with you, I've listened to everybody else, and I've kind of followed the other candidates, and I don't really see any kind of a formal platform anybody's put out for their campaigns. But I'm happy to talk about mine. I mean, the first thing I want to talk about is transparency and open government, and accountability of the government and the administration to the citizens. We have council meetings that are held, and if you go to those council meetings, you'll notice that there's nobody going anymore. the attendance at the council meetings is minimal, and I think the reason, the people I talk to, and is because I think our council has gotten into a habit of doing city business, public business, in closed session, an executive session. I don't know what the reason is, but I mean, it's the business of the people. It should be done out in the open, and that's why people don't even go. It's a waste of time to go sit in a council meeting when all that happens is they come out and they vote on ordinances and resolutions and things that are already decided on, and there's really none of that business is done out in public.
Well, because you are a lawyer, I'm going to ask you about that. They do
Sure.
go into a closed meeting to discuss amending a plan, the redevelopment plan under the contract negotiations. As a lawyer, do you think that is in keeping with the spirit of the Sunshine Law?
To amend original, like agreements that already.
It's already been passed. That's our redevelopment agreement, which was signed into law. And they go into executive session to discuss amending.
Well, it depends on the nature of the amendment, I think. If there's significant amendments that.
But we won't know.
That's true, but there should be some reporting, and that's kind of what the next phase of my platform is that there should be reporting. There should be reporting to the public about what where these things are coming from. The public should know how these plans are arrived at, or these policies are arrived at, and there should be more public input. We have all these committees in the city that council forms, and they ask for people to come and attend, join these different committees. I sat on the quality of life committee when I was in employee of the city, and then I kind of tried to come back, after I was gone. And I got to say, that committee could be such a much more effective committee and do a lot more significant, policy-driven things than what it does. But I think it's hindered because I don't think that the council gives it the authority to do the things that it should be able to do. And I think that, they should look, we have a member of a council of 5 people. That there's too much work to be done for 5 people to be doing all of that stuff. So they should be delegating it to these commissions and committees, and then let the committees and commissions come back, make recommendations to them, even draft these ordinances and put them before the council so that they can then look at them, study them, and then go to the public with them, have the public input, and then decide on them. But you know, there's too much that's done where these committees are formed and they're almost like for optics, and they're not really doing the work they should be doing. You know, for example, quality of life. We talked about doing a lot of parties and, you know, things to bring the people together. That's great for quality of life in the city, but I can think of a lot more quality of life issues that committee could have done. Would have been more significant and meaningful to the residents in this city than what we did. But we were
So
held back because our hands were tied.
You would review the committees that are out there now for the city and see how they're run now.
Yeah, I would look at the whole span of committees and how I think the functioning of the government works. I mean, give these committees and commissions, you know, authority and specific issues to address, and then to come back to the council with recommendations for formal policies, and then take that to the people and let's talk about it, and then let's adopt formal ordinances.
How would you institute that though? I mean, would this be somebody who would be in charge of all the committees? Would be a paid employee? How would you find the manpower?
I think the way we do it now, we have, you know, the council.
They're volunteers, though.
The council forms. Listen, the city is different today than when I first came here in 1993. We have a city full of talent and professionals and people that want to be involved and people that are really talented and they have the ability to help the city, and yet it's untapped talent that we're not even
so
asking.
They need more direction,
Sure.
more goals to be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for example, we should have a waterfront commission.
I can't hear you. Sorry. Okay, so we're kind of into the negative time zone here. So give me the rest of your platform.
Okay, so the rest of my platform is that there's a lot of fiscal waste and inefficiency, and I'm not going to talk about specifics, that I witnessed when I was a city employee. But I will tell you, I saw the strengths of our city administration and I saw the weaknesses. And there's a lot of money wasted on a daily basis. Okay, that needs to be addressed. And the only way to address that is to commission, either by bringing a company in to do a formal efficiency study of the entire city government administration, every department, or, you know, put together, as I just said, a commission of talented professionals that want to volunteer their time to look at how the city is run. Okay.
And the next area?
Sure. And then the next thing is the housing and development issues, you know, from not just the west side and the affordable housing issues. How about the issues on the boardwalk? How about the crumbling historic buildings that the boardwalk developer has not addressed? I mean, I get it that the economy might not be great right now and times might be a little bit difficult, but there were, like, what are we talking about? 3 or 4 summers ago when things were booming. And for a couple of years they were booming and nothing was done. When I was working there, nothing was done. We tried to get them to bring them to the table. We went over and did an inspection before the season one year because we wanted to make sure Convention Hall and the Paramount was safe for people going there. You know.
And what happened?
Well, you can see what happened. Look
so
what's
there
there
was
now.
No action.
There was no action taken, and I'm not going to get into why.
Why? I mean,
I'm not going to get into why. So the next thing I want to talk.
How are you going to fix it?
Because I'm going to be in a different position, Maureen. I'm going to be in a policy making position now. I'm going to be a council person versus in an administration where I had to take direction and I had to, you know.
Okay, that's an important point.
Yeah, and there's vacant pavilions that people are spending millions of dollars in this ocean club, and they're looking down these vacant pavilions that have gotten approvals already to be developed, and they sit there summer after summer after summer undeveloped. And I get it that, you know, it has to do with the economy, but there's a time when, you know, the timelines, nobody's being held to these timelines in the contracts, in the agreements with these developers. And they have to be held to the timelines and be in compliance with the agreements. Okay,
And
there's got to be.
Speaking of timelines, I'm
I'm sorry.
mine.
I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, but is that pretty much the platform then? Those
Well, no, I also had two other points about the economic revitalization and recovery for our business community post-COVID. There's going to be lots of once this COVID thing is addressed and it's done, which we're all praying that it's going to be done soon. You know, there's going to be a problem with our business community. If that business community fails, the whole city's in trouble. We've got to make sure that they're supported. We've got to make sure policies are in place to help them, so that their businesses are able to succeed and continue to thrive. And then the other thing is, you know, there should be collaboration and engagement between every facet of our government. There should be the council talking to the housing authority, talking to the Board of Education, talking to the police, talking to the administration. You hear about all these different aspects of government talking about each other, but you never hear them getting together and talking together. And trying to come up with the problems, the solutions to the problems. Oh, we keep going.
But I think, you know, the others are going to be upset if we're cutting into their time.
I'm sorry.
What are you saying? Go ahead. So we're going to wrap it up on you,
Okay.
your time.
Yep.
But I think it was very, very interesting. I think where are you going to be in the near future for answering questions? I'm sure this is going to raise a lot of them.
Okay, so here's the thing. I am open to answering any questions at all. And what they can do is they can go to my website, which is www.robertmckeon or I have a
McKeon
you got the spelling wrong. McKeon.
I just did a transposition.
Let me do it again. Robert McKeon, McKeon, or asburypark.org.
Or Asbury Park, is that the number 4?
Or no, FOR, asburypark.org. Okay, and then I have a Facebook page, which is Asbury for All. So if they send me a message on either, and give me their contact information, I'll get back to them. I'm willing to go out to groups and talk. I'm willing to do Zoom meetings and talk. We're having private house parties now for fundraising, and we're going to go out and talk to those folks.
Okay, so there's nothing
let me know.
that you want us to post right now that's already set, and then we have to
nothing
make
formal.
a hard break.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Rob.
And please vote for me, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.